If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure of how you got to where you are, this episode is for you. Because today we're talking about choice, not as something that you have failed to make, but as something that's always been quietly available, even in ways you may have not been taught to see. This is the beginning of a series exploring what it really means to choose in our relationships, our health, our money, and the way we show up for ourselves. And my hope is that by the end of this conversation, you remember something simple but powerful. You have more choice than you might think. Welcome to Shine Bright with Coach Sarah Kay. I'm Sarah, your go-to coach for mindset, money, relationships, and all the little things life throws your way. Here, we blend human design with real-life tools so you can heal, grow, and create a life that feels like you. I'll share stories, strategies, and soul shifts to help you shine brighter than ever before. Grab your favorite comfort beverage and let's chat. Hi, friend. Welcome back to Shine Bright with Coach Sarah Kay, the podcast that helps you break free from what's holding you back so you can live a life that truly lights you up. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm so excited that you're here. Today's episode is the very beginning of a special series that we're diving into. It's a series all about choice. And before we talk about changing anything in our lives, I want to slow us down and talk about what choice actually means. Because when we hear the word choice, it can sometimes feel heavy, like pressure, responsibility, or something that we should have done differently by now. And that's not what this series is all about. This conversation is about remembering that choice isn't just about those big, life altering decisions. It's about the small, everyday moments where we still have influence over how we respond, how we treat ourselves, and how we move through our lives. In this first episode of the series, I want to focus on three foundational ideas, ideas that will support everything we talk about throughout the rest of the series. First, we're going to talk about choice as personal power, not as control over our life, but the ability to participate in it. Even when circumstances feel limiting, choice often still exists in how we show up, what we prioritize, and what meaning we assign to our experiences. Second, we'll explore why awareness always comes before choice. So often, we feel stuck. It's not because we don't have options, it's because we're moving through patterns that we haven't yet learned to see. And awareness is not about judgment, it's about gently turning on those lights. And then finally, we'll talk about the difference between reacting and choosing consciously. Many of us spend our days reacting from habit, stress, or even social conditioning that may no longer serve us anymore. But when we create even a small pause, a breath, a moment of presence, something powerful opens up, the ability to choose differently. My hope for today isn't that you walk away knowing exactly what to change. It's that you walk away feeling a little bit more spacious, a little bit more compassionate with yourself, and a little more connected to the truth that choice is still available to you right here, right now. As we settle into this episode, I want to gently shift us into the first idea that we're exploring today. The idea that choice isn't about forcing change. It's about reconnecting with the sense of inner power that maybe feels distant or unavailable to you right now. Power isn't about dominance, force, or perfection. Here, it's about having influence, participation, and presence, even when the circumstances are imperfect. Choice is one of the most accessible forms of power that we have. And there's a difference between control and choice. Control tries to manage everything outside of us, and the focus is outward. Choice, however, lives inside of us. The focus is inward. We often lose trust in choice because we confuse it with control. But losing control doesn't mean that we lose our power and our ability to choose. Even when life seems really hard or circumstances are limited, choice often exists in how we speak to ourselves, what we give our energy to, how we care for ourselves, and where we place our attention. Choice allows us to move from thinking that life is just happening to me to thinking that I'm a participant in my own life. Sometimes we feel powerless and we check out or disconnect, but looking at all of our choices reconnects us to ourselves and the power over our lives. If choosing feels hard or unfamiliar to you, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means that this is a skill that you're still learning, and skills can be practiced. Some people were taught that they had choices, while others were taught survival, often freezing, overthinking, or avoiding when they need to make a decision. So many of my clients have realized that they often avoided making decisions because they were trying to people please. They have shared with me that life was easier if they just did what mom or dad, their spouse, or their friends wanted, because if they spoke up, they would be treated negatively. Let me just remind you that we aren't just talking about those big choices here. Practicing by making small choices over and over starts to rebuild our self trust and helps us to restore confidence in ourselves and our decisions. We're building that so called muscle. We're practicing by making small choices so that if a big choice presents itself, we feel confident in what our choices are and what we choose to do. I want to just pause right here and remind you that reclaiming choice is not about criticizing those past decisions you made. You did the best that you could with the information that you had at the time. Seeing choice now doesn't mean that you failed before. It means that you're growing, that you're looking at your options with a different lens. Kind of like going and getting your eyes checked, which I just did a couple weeks ago. When the doctor puts all of those letters in front of your face, there may be so many options that are blurry or out of focus. But when he puts those lenses in front of your eyes, the options become more clear. And that's exactly what I help my clients do, to see their options with a clearer lens. A lot of times, seeing options that they didn't see before. As we get older and experience life a little bit more, we start to see more options. And personal growth doesn't mean that we're judging our past selves. I heard a saying many years ago that has really stuck with me. You don't know what you don't know. As we meet more people and experience more things in life, we start to become more aware of things. We learn more, therefore, giving us more options to choose from. Awareness becomes so important because we can't choose differently until we actually see what's happening. If choice is our power, awareness is what helps us access it. Do me a favor, really quick. And if it's safe for you to do so right now, cover both of your eyes with your hands. What do you see? Do you see the lines in your palms? Maybe some jewelry? Do you see darkness or maybe nothing? We can't choose something that we can't see. So often, when my clients say that they feel stuck, what's really happening is that they're moving through patterns that have become so familiar that they didn't realize that they had blinders on because of their own beliefs or beliefs from others. Awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. It creates options, not obligations. When we have those blinders on, or if something is blurring our so called vision, that's often when we feel stuck or overwhelmed. I know that I've personally been guilty of thinking that I don't have options because something didn't work in the past, or if I made a certain choice, something bad happened. So I don't think that's an option anymore. But in reality, a certain option may not have worked in that situation in the past, but that doesn't mean that it won't work in a slightly different situation in the future. We often automatically limit our options without giving that option a real chance. Our nervous system is designed to conserve energy and feel comfortable. So when something feels familiar, we repeat it over and over and over, even if it's no longer supportive to where we are now. Remember not to beat yourself up about doing the same thing that you've done in the past, because our subconscious goes into autopilot without us even realizing. Remember that we have a choice to make a change. But in order to have a choice, we need to be aware that we are doing things on autopilot. And you don't need to change things immediately. By taking a moment to pause and make yourself aware of how you're currently doing that thing, so you can determine your choices to move forward. The pause is where choice begins. Let awareness be the first step to making a change. If all you do this week is notice, that's enough. I'm sure most of us have experience if we try to fix patterns too quickly, it can sometimes backfire. When you pause to notice the pattern, you might realize there are 3, 4, or 5 ways that you could choose to respond, not just the one that you're used to doing. So get curious. It opens up way more possibilities. And once awareness creates that pause, something else becomes possible. The difference between reacting automatically and choosing consciously. Because once we become aware of the pattern, the next question is, what happens in that moment? Do we move straight into reaction? Or do we create just enough space to choose how we want to respond? Now, let's talk a little bit about the difference between automatic reaction and conscious choice. Automatic reactions are fast, they're familiar, and they're protective. They often come from our past experiences. They're a survival technique that our subconscious has used to keep us safe. Conscious choice is slower and present. It comes from the here and now. And I want to point out here that being reactive isn't wrong, it's just comfortable for us. I also want to say that being comfortable is what keeps us stuck where we are. When our nervous system is overwhelmed, it's not that we don't have choices, it's that our nervous system doesn't allow us to see all of our choices. Stress narrows our options and calm expands our perspective. We don't just think our way into better choices, we regulate our way there. Let's talk about some ways that we can regulate our nervous system to help us see our options. The simplest and one of the most powerful ways is to pause and take a deep breath. You don't need a full breathing practice, although 15 to 30 minutes of breath work is super helpful for our nervous systems. Even one slow breath can tell your body, I'm here and I'm safe enough. So when you're faced with a situation where you would normally react, take a deep breath, inhaling for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, and then exhaling slowly for 6 seconds. Let's try that. There are other breathing techniques that are more structured, like box breathing, but taking a few deep breaths activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms reactivity. Oftentimes, when I take a deep breath, I can feel the tension leave my body just from taking some deep breaths. Another way to regulate our nervous system is to orient ourselves to the present moment. You could look around and name 3 things that you can see, or you could feel your feet on the floor or outside on the ground. Just be grounded. Or notice the temperature of the air on your skin or the sun on your face. Sometimes regulation is just reminding your body where you are. Another way I like to regulate my nervous system is to gently do a self check. I ask myself, or even journal about it, some questions like, what am I feeling right now? What do I need in this moment? What would feel the most supportive to me right now? This isn't about fixing the feeling, it's about acknowledging it. Sometimes the fastest way to calm the mind is to soften the body. Stress often lives in the jaw, shoulders, and hands. So unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders down, and uncurl your hands. Sometimes I even shake those body parts around just to remind myself to soften the tension in my body. Another way to regulate our nervous system is to name what's happening. When we name what's happening, we create just enough distance to respond instead of react. Saying things like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, or this is a stress response, and I don't need to decide anything right now. Those can all calm us down enough to bring our brain back online so that we can think clearer. Regulating our nervous system isn't about calming down perfectly. It's about creating enough space, enough pause, so choice becomes available again. We can choose consciously and still feel uncertain. That doesn't mean that we are making the wrong choice. Choosing consciously is about alignment, not control. It builds our self trust instead of our self judgment. To help build self trust, practice pausing in small everyday moments, like responding to an email or text, or when you're frustrated about something or someone, or when you make a mistake. It's not just those big, hard decisions. Start small and be gentle with yourself as you incorporate this practice of pausing to make a conscious choice instead of automatically reacting. And when we begin to notice our reactions, just create awareness and practice the pause. Something powerful starts to shift, not because we're forcing change, but because we're becoming more present with ourselves. So, as we come to a close today, I just want to gently recap what we explored together. We talked about choice, not as pressure or something you should have done differently, but as a form of personal power that lives inside of you. We explored how choice doesn't require control and how, even in difficult or limited circumstances, there's often still a way to participate in our lives through how we respond, how we care for ourselves, and how we stay present. We also talked about awareness, how we can't choose differently until we can see what's happening, and how noticing patterns isn't about judging ourselves, but about gently turning on the lights so that more options become visible. And finally, we explored the difference between reacting and choosing consciously, how our nervous system plays a role in the choices available to us, and how even a small pause can create space for a different response. If there's one thing I hope you take away from today, it's this: that you don't need to change everything all at once. Simply noticing. Noticing your reactions, your patterns, your pauses is already a powerful choice. In the next episode of the Shine Bright Choice series, we're going to go a little deeper into what shapes our choices from the inside out. We'll talk about how our emotional state and even overwhelm or fatigue can influence what feels possible, and how to support ourselves so choosing doesn't feel so hard. Until then, my invitation is simple. This week, notice where you have an opportunity to pause in the small moments of your life. And when you have those opportunities, remind yourself that you have more choices than you might think. If this episode resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need this reminder right now. Someone who might be feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or disconnected from their own sense of choice. And if you haven't already, make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss the rest of the Shine Bright Choice series and our other episodes. You can also leave a comment or a review, not just to support the show, but because your reflections help this message reach the people who need it most. Most of all, thank you for choosing to be here, for listening, for reflecting, and for showing up for yourself in this way. As a reminder, I'm taking applications to be a guest on my podcast. So if you've overcome challenges, shifted your mindset, or have wisdom to share, I would love to feature you on the Shine Bright with Coach Sarah K podcast, because your story matters. Just go to shinebrightmindsetcoaching.com/podcast and click the apply now button to let me know that you want to be a guest. And I also wanted to quickly thank Shine Bright Mindset Coaching LLC for sponsoring today's episode. Until next time, even if you don't feel like you're making big moves, the fact that you're choosing awareness and compassion means that your light is already shining bright. See you next time, friend. Thanks for hanging out with me on the Shine Bright with Coach Sarah K podcast. If today's episode inspired you, hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. Better yet, share it with a friend who might need a little bit of light today. I would love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, so leave a comment below or send me a DM on Instagram at Shine Bright Mindset Coaching. Until next time, keep shining. The world needs your light.